Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people. Welcome. This is our R3 2023 release webinar, but focusing on all of your productivity suites. That includes reporting, testing, network debugging, and all the good things. Although testing is kind of a whole different genre by itself, so we'd like to cover that by itself. So let's talk about reporting and Fiddler, and let's have a little fun over the next hour and a half, okay? So let's get rolling. If I can find my mouse. Nope, getting too far ahead. There you go. So I'm your host for the day, Sam, and with me I have brought my two best friends who are knowledgeable about it, unlike me. So Rick and Simona, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, it's good to be here. My name is Simona, and I am the product manager of the Fiddler products. So I'll be covering this today, and I hope you find this useful and you get to play with traffic as soon as you can.
To clarify, it's play with traffic, not play in traffic. And hello, everyone. I'm Rick Hellwege. I apologize for my dad humor. I am a principal sales engineer here at Progress Telerik. I cover the reporting products, a lot of the .NET stuff. We'll have some fun today talking about all the new bits and bobs.
Indeed. So folks, while you see just the three of us on screen and on camera today, we do have, a whole little army of folks behind the scenes. These are also the folks who are actually the engineers and the PMs who build these products. So we say this all the time, you are giving us an hour and a half of your precious time of your day. So let's make it count. Ask away any questions that you have. I'll point out more of this. There's a Q&A panel, and you can also ask questions on social. So let's keep a nice conversation going. All right, so what exactly is this release? What are we talking about? We are here for developer productivity. I'll talk about where we started with this release and what things we have covered. We are specifically focusing on some of the enterprise workflows, some of the pain points that developers have as we are building apps, as we are shipping apps, and as we are including not just developers, other cogs in the wheel, QA people, your end users, all of it together. So we're talking about productivity for everybody. Now, every release, we do 3 major releases a year, give or take, and a lot of the products have ongoing releases, smaller releases in between, but we kind of try to stick to a theme. A lot of folks, be it from .NET, be it from JavaScript, are trying to modernize apps, especially on the .NET stack. So we are trying to enable all of that. We are trying to enable better designer and developer synergy in terms of how we work. You have wonderful UI components from our all things .NET, MAUI and Blazor and ASP.NET. A lot of love and care into your Angular components and React components and so on. And reporting and networking solutions, these are kind of critical to how you ship and how you build your apps. So that's all that we're going to focus on today. So this is kind of our overall theme for the release. Now, if you are just joining us today, you may have missed a little bit of the fun, but again, don't worry, all of it has been recorded. So our big R3 release of the year, it actually went out about a week before, because we are trying to make sure everything is good, and then we can do all of our announcements. So if you are paying attention, if you are an existing Telerik or a Fiddler user, maybe you have already seen the bits be live. However you get it, maybe it's an install, maybe it's a NuGet package. Those bits have been live for a while now. October 17th, earlier this week, we always like doing a informal live stream party to celebrate the release. So again, if you're new to Twitch, come and join us and hang out with us at twitch.tv/codeit_live. We are very informal, very chatty, but we did take the time to go over formally what the release was. We stand on the shoulder of giants every release. Our engineering teams put in a lot of effort and love and care into these releases, so we try to do justice and cover all the things that we can in a very short amount of time. So earlier this week, Wednesday, we talked about all things JavaScript with Angular, jQuery, React, and Vue. And then yesterday, October 19th, we talked about all things .NET. And today we are going to kind of extend into a lot of the .NET things with reporting, but you're going to also see a lot of the network debugging stories. So that was yesterday, talking about most of the UI component story for .NET. We talked about JavaScript, but this is today. So drum rolls for all things productivity. reporting, and Fiddler. That's all that we're going to get into. Like I said, our testing solutions, Telerik Test Studio, that is a whole beast by itself. So we like to give it the honor that it deserves with a whole separate webinar. So let's focus on reporting and Fiddler today. So thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we can show you how these two things can make your lives so much easier, wherever you are in the development stack. So this has been a big release, and for a lot of customers who are already using our things, maybe you're used to it, but we always like saying look around, because you may already have what's called DevCraft, which is a big bundle of all of our products, includes reporting, includes .NET or JavaScript sometimes. So you may not be using something that you already have. It just maybe it's a small trigger that you need to say, oh, I could use that. So take a look at all of the release details. Every product takes the time to write up what's new. So all of that information is up at blogs.telerik.com. And if you are following along, there's a Q&A panel in the webinar window, so you can ask away any questions. We try to answer as many of them as we can during the webinar. If you want to leave a breadcrumb trail, ask away on social using the hashtag #HeyTelerik. And we are here doing everything live, and we are recording this. So if anything happens to your network or you have to jump, don't worry. We are recording this, and we'll put this up on YouTube as soon as we can. All right, so like I already said, however you get the bits, a lot of you use the control panel, a lot of you use just a straight up download installer. Maybe you use a NuGet package or an NPM package, get the hot bits. That's how you're going to see things light up, what Simona and Rick are here to show you. So that's our release, and we genuinely care about your experience. We are all for developers. We talk about roles that are QA, roles that are IT or CI/CD pipeline oriented, but overall we are trying to make sure everybody is successful. Whether you're using reporting or Fiddler, always check out the docs and tell us if there are any gaps, because we do not want you to struggle. So take a look at all of the demos. We take a lot of love and care in putting together the demos, making sure we can showcase as many things as we can. And then feedback.telerik.com, every one of us is reading what you put in. So if you want a feature that you just don't have, please talk to us so we can go ahead and make that for you. With that, let's roll with Mr. Rick Hellwege first. Let's talk about reporting, because this is so essential. Like, I can have all of my fancy, UI components that light up my app, but my, CEO comes in and says, I want to report. My folks in the field come in and say, I want a detailed report. I want it delivered 9 a.m. on Monday morning. So how do we enable that without reporting? We just cannot. Data visualization is important. So, Rick, tell me a little bit about our reporting solution overall.
Absolutely. So the Telerik Reporting solution is a powerhouse of reporting features. It is a .NET backend with a UI agnostic front end. It is completely decoupled, so you can roll it into your existing solution. You can set up microservices. You can build it into the cloud. You can use it on-prem. It is fully featured, includes over a dozen front-end report viewers, 3 powerful report designers, supports everything from .NET Framework 4.0 straight through .NET 8 Release Candidate 2, surprise, surprise, and it really has everything you need to build a fully featured integrated reporting solution.
Yeah, well said. It's just a lot. It's just everything you can think of reporting wise, how you build it, how you design it, and where you deploy it. And we got some surprises for you that might actually help out a lot more. So here's kind of a overview of what you get with Telerik Reporting. There are several aspects to a reporting solution. First is your data. Bring it however you are. Wherever you have it, in the cloud, on-prem, under your desk, we don't care. We can, reach out and bind to it. And then it comes to how do you actually build and how do you design your reports. And you want some, flexibility here. If you have, developers in the house, they might be used to Visual Studio, but a lot more folks might be, more comfortable in a standalone designer. Or maybe you have folks who want it to be completely in your browser, like an end user who's not technical. You still want them to, be able to design their own reports, pull in some data. So we can enable all of that with some REST services, with some APIs. And then it comes to visualizing the report, like where are you actually going to deliver the reports, what platform? and you have a plethora of choices, be it web, be it, desktop, you got a lot of choices. And we've got some, again, good announcements here, trying to, make it as performant, as native as it can be for each, platform. And then you can, export it out however you want. So I'm sure like Rick and team have put in a lot of effort in each one of these, 4 pillars to trying to, enable all that you need with your reporting solution. Now, the first thing that you do need with any reporting is, UI components, right? So, Rick, are we, in dearth of anything that we need, or you think we have a lot?
There's so many reporting items that you can build into the reports, and there's more coming out every day. We're going to look at some brand new ones today. Everyone who was with us in R2 knows that we released the new radial gauge component. This is a very sought after visual style in order to easily show your data aggregates, sort of in a very nice single point overview. We'll get to look at some of those, but
yeah, there's some new things.
There's so many things. I mean,
we have a lot, but we are still building, new things every release.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's all reporting, how you build and how you maybe, serve up your reports. But there's something to be said about report management, because that sounds like a bigger deal. So what is our report server tool?
Sure. So report server in short. So Sam, if you came to me and you said, I need a reporting solution, it's 11 a.m. here on a Friday, and I need to be live enterprise ready by end of day today. You're not building your own, but with report server, you can run an installer, configure a database connection, put in some basic parameters, and you can be up live and running with an enterprise solution within an hour. It is a complete package from login through export with granular user permissions that in total that wraps all of our reporting features into a pre-built solution for you. And it's delivered in sort of enterprise-friendly, production-ready terms as far as licensing and building. And we could spend an entire session on report server, but leave it to be said, it is a immensely powerful tool.
Yeah, I like the turnkey solution parts of this. Like, I do not want to do authentication myself. I do not want to be responsible for automating the delivery of the reports, right? So it's everything that you can think about managing, how you report. So we still have those pillars, like building your report, binding it, designing it, visualizing it, and now we add on storing it and how you manage it. How do you do, user authentication? How do you, schedule reports to be delivered to specific people with specific roles at a specific time? So all of that automation is what's kind of built in with Telerik Report Server. So that's just a quick, overview of what our reporting does. And we got a quick poll for you just to make sure everyone's interactive and you are kind of engaged with what we are doing. So let's roll with a quick question to see where you folks are with your reporting needs. And we are kind of leading you into a certain direction here because we understand some of the pains and some of the complications that sometimes we need to juggle when it comes to deployment of our apps. So if you are looking for a reporting solution, a reporting enabled app that you're wanting to deploy in the next year or so, what are some of your options? What are you thinking? Do you already have dedicated Windows server in-house, or are you thinking in the cloud, right? Do you have Linux servers, which are extremely popular, or also on-prem or in the cloud? Or is it something else that you're rolling with, right? So, I mean, to me, Windows and Linux are kind of the broad ways in which we deploy production apps server-wise, and that could be in-house or on cloud. So tell us where you are, and if it's something else, then we would also like to know where you're thinking. Oh, wow, okay. Rick, this might not be a surprise for you. 61% Windows, that's good. But I do see something that's interesting. That's Linux, right? So you got 11% and 13% who are looking at AWS, looking at Azure, or maybe in-house Linux servers that they are wanting to host their apps in. So can we do something about that? So let's head back here to the regular slides, and let's talk about what's next here. Let's see if I can find my mouse again. All right. I know you're excited about this, Rick, and the whole team has worked so
Absolutely.
hard on this. Skia
This has
Sharp,
been
yeah,
this
go
has
ahead.
been 2 years in development, Sam, and I may have dropped a few hints in the past in some of the webinars subtly about things working behind the scenes, but the team, and I take no credit for this, the amazing engineering team finally brought the Skia rendering engine to fruition, which in 2 years is I can't underemphasize the monumental task that was. The previous rendering engine was 20 years in development and performance tuning, and we
Right.
rebuilt it, for an entirely different graphics library in about 2 years. The
Yeah,
the effort
so
involved is
that's
huge.
quite monumental, and the team is here in the background, so big kudos to them. But let's kind of break this down a little bit. So when we talk about rendering the report, actual reports getting rendered out, the graphics that we use in the reports, that is the core of the engine. It also does, it pulls data, it does the binding, but when it's actually getting rendered, that's where the graphics comes in. And Skia Sharp is extremely popular.
Mhm.
It's cross-platform. It's a very powerful 2D graphics library. But the nice benefit here is we can step away from a certain platform. It's a little bit agnostic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the link here? Like, what was the dependency, and what can we break away now to go to Linux?
Absolutely. So the secret sauce in reporting is, like you said, the graphics rendering engine. Is something to keep in mind with reporting is it is all based around real world measurements, inches, millimeters. You lay out your reports in actual increments. It's the rendering engine that does all of the amazing work of saying, my report is 11 inches wide. How do I translate that into, DPI and pixels on a 1080 by, whatever monitor at this resolution rate? It's really that rendering engine that does all those calculations in real time to make sure that your reports are pixel perfect regardless of the export media. But the rendering engine that we had used was GDI Plus, based on GDI, which was first released in Windows V1. So it has quite some deep roots. Now, as a lot of people know, GDI was supported in Linux through a library called libgdi plus, which is an open source library, which theoretically enjoyed community support. In reality, I believe 100% of the support was being done by Microsoft in their free time. And as of .NET 7, they decided that there were too many issues in that library to maintain a production level confidence in .NET 7 forward. So moral of the story, GDI Plus is not, libgdi Plus for Linux was not supported in .NET 7, will not be supported in .NET 8. If you wanted to use .NET 7, .NET 8, you had to build on a Windows server. End of story. It actually throws a compile exception. It will not let you deploy it. So in order to provide Linux support for .NET 7, .NET 8, .NET Next, we converted the entire rendering, the team converted the entire graphics rendering library to use Skia Sharp, which is a open source project started by Google to support graphics rendering. It's multi-platform. You can target Windows, Linux, Android 4 Plus. I think Lollipop was the first version to support it. All the things. This opens the door to so many possibilities going forward for places we can use the rendering engine. Again, I can't give too much away, but if you just look at how Skia Sharp is being supported and in which platforms, you can maybe make some guesses about where we'll be able to embed, reporting in the future.
Indeed. This is a big deal. And folks in the Q&A chat room, we do see the questions pile up, but let's get over some of the core announcements, and then I'll try to get to it. And again, our folks in the back channels are already answering questions. We'll try to highlight the ones that is going to benefit everyone. Okay, so this is clearly a big deal, taking us 2 years in the making. However, we are still doing more in terms of report viewers, where you can actually render those reports. Rick talked about the how, but this is the where and how you actually visualize the reports. And we have had some good things. We have had WPF and Windows-based report viewers. We have had web-based report viewers. Now it seems like we are doing stuff on Angular.
Absolutely. So yeah, the Skia that's entirely in the back end rendering, and as I said, reporting is completely decoupled, which means at the front end, it makes requests to the back end, but they might as well be different products for as interconnected as they are. So we have always had the ability to use a report viewer in Angular, first the HTML5 report viewer, then the Angular report viewer, which was a wrapped version of the HTML5 report viewer. But there's a lot of advantages in rendering in Angular that we were not able to take advantage of. So we built a completely native Angular report viewer, which leverages the Kendo UI for Angular library to build out the menus and the buttons. We like drinking our own champagne here. We spent a lot of time building our components. We're going to utilize them, to the best of our ability. So the Angular report viewer leverages Kendo Angular to implement all of its styling, all of its theming, and all of its navigation.
Yeah, well said. I mean, and we have done that for Blazor as well. The benefit of going native is it's truly very, very responsive and as performant as it can be. The HTML5 web viewer is fine, but I mean, this just gives you a little bit more, oomph out of the box. And we like dogfooding. We use Kendo UI grids and charts and menus just about, a lot of different places. So glad to see a native report viewer coming out for Angular land. Now, we have been on this journey, Rick, about accessibility, because this is clearly important. We need to be more inclusive as to how we deliver the reports. And when people go through the reports, we need to be, cognitive of certain accessibility standards. So PDF A-1A, we are now compliant with that. What else is new?
Sure, yeah. And accessibility is huge. I mean, it's a shame that it's often a secondary concern, but being able to turn on accessibility with I'm not being facetious, literally a single click during your wizard is massive. So in R2, we added PDF A-1A support, which is the next accessibility standard for PDF rendering. In this release, we refocused on that, and what we ended up doing was rebuilding, if I understand correctly, we rebuilt the tree structure that is being used by PDF A-1A, so that when readers are navigating the trees, the elements that are presented back to the screen readers are done in a more intelligent format. But basically, we just tightened the accessibility standard to make it even better than it was before. And this is something we're going to continue doing as we move forward.
Yeah, everything is more semantic. And this actually has a very real implication. If you are working for clients or government agencies where there are strict accessibility standards, you do not want to do this by hand, because it takes a lot of engineering. Like Rick said, check a checkbox and you have it. So we are going to continue on this journey, and we are very proud to be doing what we are doing here. All right, now there are some new functionality here, looks like, for the web report designers. And I have just been amazed in the last 3-4 years to see, like, the report designers that we have within Visual Studio and the standalone. They are so complicated, and now we are able to do all of it pretty much in a browser. But it looks like we have some added functionality for some APIs that you might want to extend or restrict some of the usage.
Yes. So let's see. This is the web report. Okay, so what this one is about, what this slide is talking about, well, we have a couple different things here. Web report design. Okay, so this is about the ability to add some permission into the web report designer. Sorry, we have two similar API releases. Sam, I wasn't sure which slide you presented.
I worded this wrong. Yeah, but I think that this one's talking about, when you are handing this off to your users who can design their own reports, there are certain things you might want to restrict.
So this was huge. This one is huge. So there was a long-standing request to have the ability to modulate, to titrate the permissions a user has within editing a report. Now, report server somewhat handled this by saying, user A has access to modify report A, report B. But once that access was given, they had full access to that report. They could do absolutely everything, including, control A, delete, and the report's gone. So what we ended up doing, and again, we, the engineering team, they built the ability to lock down specific features of the web report designer, both on a global and a per user basis. And this is just, it completely changes the way users interact with reporting, because now you can create anything you need as far as user grouping, user permissions. You can say users can only add text elements to a report. You can turn graphs off. You can control whether or not they can modify data sources. Maybe they can only add new data sources but cannot delete existing ones. Maybe they can, they can add or delete, but they can't modify a data source. Really, there's several dozen, last time I checked, different granular permissions built in that allow you to control every aspect of the web report designer.
Right. So it's much more fine-grained, and it lets you control, like maybe like you said, data sources, certain asset manager resources that you do not want people to change. It lets you do all of that, and it's all controlled by APIs. Now, this is the one that you were talking about. We added a radial gauge last release, but sounds like we have a brand new linear gauge.
We do. So we wanted to release them together, but the radial gauge took quite a bit more engineering than I think was planned. So we put the linear gauge on hold for one release to make sure we could release an absolutely perfect radial gauge, which I think we did. And now we have its cousin, the linear gauge, and we'll get to look at both of these. They're semantic cousins. One is round, one is linear, and they have very, very similar API properties. But it just gives you a slightly different way of visualizing your data.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just so intuitive. Like when you deliver these things, when you're trying to show metrics, when you're trying to show progress or measurements, it's just so intuitive. Like it's right there, showing you the range of values and the exact representation of what you need to do. So. Yeah, I think this is a big win. It just kind of wraps up most of the things that you could ever think of doing from a reporting UI standpoint. Now it looks like there are enhancements all through. We cannot list all the things that's in every release, but we try to bring out the big ones. So if you're using a picture box, now there is more image alignment. So it obviously enhances how you are visualizing and rendering the layout of what you're trying to design. So when you have an image, you want to be very specific as to how things flow around it. So we can now do alignment. The web report designer also gets a new gauge report item wizard. So this is exactly what Rick was talking about. We made a gauge, a radial gauge, but is this a quick way to just kind of be able to bring it into a report?
Yes, the wizard is a nice visual way of building your gauge, and it's not hard to do without the wizard. In fact, I'll show both because it's so simple to show. But it just lets you visually set up your gauge, and there's three major properties that have to be configured: the ranges, the scales, and the labels. So instead of having to configure each set of properties individually, you can sort of set your bounds once, and the wizard will do it for you. I mean, it's the difference between maybe 10 minutes of design time versus 2 minutes of design time. But when you have 20 gauges to build, I mean,
every little bit matters. Yeah. And we're doing more around exposing report parameters, so your H215 report viewers can be more in tune with what the user is wanting. Be more specific about which parameters go into the report and how the reports are generated based on the report parameters and the data that we're pulling in.
Yes,
now this is
that's what you were talking about earlier. No worries, Sam. And that's actually what I just wanted to mention. That's a great example of our feedback form, because that one comes directly from a customer request to be able to view some more parameter meta information at runtime.
Yeah. And we have big news on the runtime front, because again, we have customers who do the .NET framework. You're fine, no rush. You have .NET 3, 4, 5, 6 all along the way. But if you want to be on the bleeding edge, we are right there with you. .NET 8 is scheduled to be out. It's not out yet, coming out this November. And then the preview is a little old. We are right now at release candidate level. So we have had RC1, we have had RC2, and RC3 might be coming out, and then we are going to go into production ready. Both of these, RC1 and 2, have a production go live license, so you can build production apps with it. And we are very proud to say that our Telerik reporting runs on absolutely the latest and greatest if you want to be on the bleeding edge. All right, so with that, let's do one more quick interactive poll here before I hand it over to Rick to show you all the things. Talking about your runtimes, we want to know where you're actually building it. Where are you running your reports, right? So is it .NET 6, .NET 5, .NET Framework, or different versions of .NET Framework? Some of it is getting to be, it's aging a little bit. .NET Framework isn't going away. It's part of Windows, but if you look at Microsoft as well, like some of those things, they're not receiving as many, security updates either. So we want to kind of understand where you folks are at. Are you .NET 6 and forward, or are you .NET 3 or 5, or are you on .NET, a certain version of .NET Framework? So let us know where you're at. And this is kind of asking about your embedding of reports in particular. So think about where you're embedding your reports within your applications and what the runtimes are. Oh, look at that,
Wow.
Rick. This might make you happy.
It does. This makes me very happy.
It's very, very nice to know. And once you have switched over from framework to core to modern .NET, these increments become incrementally easier. Going from 5 to 6 to 7 and 8 become easier. But it's good to know almost 70% of you are on .NET 6 and above. That's wonderful. And again, for folks who are on framework 4.6 or 8, nothing wrong. You're fine, and we'll keep on supporting you. All right, that's good to know. Now, Rick, why don't, well, actually, I have one more thing to mention. This is probably because I am biased, because I love the fact that we can do, Blazor reporting on top of native mobile and desktop apps. So that's the Blazor hybrid story, and we can render our HTML report viewers on top of just about everything. I know it's getting old, like we have started saying this for the last 3 releases, but I always like mentioning it because it's nice. I can do that on my native, mobile apps. So with that, Rick, why don't I give you the floor and you show us some of the things that you just talked about. All right, let's switch to you. All right, you take us deep into the deep end with Visual Studio right away.
Well, I like to start with the scary one first. But no, we're going to start, actually, I want to show the native Angular report viewer, just because that one is just a bit out of process with the rest of my demo. So we're just going to get that out of the way real quick. So I have this is just our sample project that we include with the latest release. So you can open this folder in Visual Studio Code, follow the instructions in the README, and to build and deploy, and you'll get something looking very similar to this. So this looks like all of our other report viewers for the most part. It has a menu, has some nice buttons and controls. It renders one of our reports in it. In fact, the same report is rendered in a lot of our other demos, so it's completely cross-compatible, cross-functional. And we included a nice little sandbox here at the bottom where you can control all the elements of the report viewer externally too. So this is just a way of showing that we have these hooks built into the viewer. So if you wanted to, have a little extra control, you can do anything you want here. Of course, you probably wouldn't build a control panel like this, but this is great for a sandbox. And just real quick to prove I'm not lying, I'll drop into the element highlighter. We'll just pick a random, and scrolling up, you can see that it is the Kendo combo box from our Angular library. So this is going to inherit all of your pre-existing styles, all of your themes. If you're looking at the native Angular report viewer, you are likely already running, Kendo UI for Angular. So it is going to pull in all of your existing stuff sort of automatically.
Yeah, this is nice. Even though like the report looks like any other report, it's good to know what's going on under the covers, that it's truly a native Angular report.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about Skia first. That's probably a good place to start. So what I have here is a sample project that I built. Actually, I built this as part of a blog effort for a blog that I'm writing that will go live next week. So I built a KPI, key performance indicator dashboard using some of our gauges. Here we see our radial gauges. On the left, we see our linear gauges, and then we also have a chart and a table, because you can't have a dashboard without a chart and a table. So
this is such a classic dashboard. Like, think about how many times you're out on a field and you need a dashboard like this.
Absolutely. So anyone that needs to build a dashboard that looks like this, doesn't look like this, is somewhat similar to this, I have a blog coming out where they'll show you step by step how this was built. I'll just drop into preview real quick to show you the rendering. And there's a couple, neat little tricks that I built into here. So you'll get to learn some of how I did this, like this rating element, 1 to 5 stars. That's a little bit of clever programming. So if you want to see how I did that, read the blog. So going back, this is the report that I built, and we'll minimize here. And I want to show this in the classic rendering, which we have here. This is rendered with GDI, GDI plus, excuse me. And it probably looks like, like you'd expect it to. So the way this works is there's a simple configuration in app settings that allows you to define your engine name. If you don't do this, you're going to get platform dependent by default, which just means that if you're running on Windows, it's going to use GDI. If you're running on Linux, it's going to use Skia. But if you want some consistency, you want to just play around, you can always override this as long as you bring in the telerik.drawing.skia package from NuGet. You can say, I want to always use the Skia rendering engine. And we'll just rerun that real quick. Here it comes.
Would you? Oh, there it is.
Yep.
I was going to ask, like, would you, prefer it to be platform dependent on where you're running it, or would you rather have it consistent the same way everywhere?
Well, it really depends. As of this release, because the Skia is brand new, you only can export to PDF, and I think they got Excel done. So if you need additional rendering types beyond that, for right now, you need to use GDI. In subsequent releases, we're going to bring those things in alignment, and then it's really up to you. I think that technically GDI might be more performant by a handful of milliseconds. So if that matters, maybe you could continue using GDI. There's nothing wrong with platform dependent though. Let the engine make the decision. But right. What I wanted to point out is I would challenge anybody to find a difference between this rendering and the one I had shown before, because I certainly can't. Even some of the more fiddly things like the borders, which there's a 1 pixel border around these elements here to give you that sort of black outline in the panels that I created. That's a very fiddly item to render, I have to tell you. And this just looks perfect, to my eyes.
Yeah, it's pixel perfect. And the big thing here is now you can, take this and deploy it anywhere you want. Anywhere
you want. You don't have to use, a more costly Windows environment. You can, deploy it to, Linux. You can containerize it if that's if that's your thing. That opens up, a lot of possibilities. And as we move forward, .NET 8, .NET 9, .NET 10, it's going to continue working.
Indeed. Yeah, this is no small feat. I know how much effort it took from the engineering teams to pull this off. It's a huge switch of how the core of the report is rendered. So the graphics library is it's a big deal.
Now I want to show the linear gauge. I'm just going to create a new report real quick.
And this, by the way, what Rick is showing off, that is the standalone report designer.
This is the standalone report designer, and yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of an A/B test. So this is going to be super quick. So I'm just going to add a static linear gauge. We don't have time for data binding, but we'll insert. You see here we have radial, we have linear, you have horizontal, you have vertical, you have multi-range, you have single range. So these are all fairly self-explanatory. We'll just grab a simple linear multi-range here, and you get sort of a basic layout. And what I want, like I was talking about before, this is not difficult to create using just the properties here. So you have indicator, which of course is the arrow, the labels, the ranges, the scales, and the ticks. So ranges, ticks, scales, and the labels are the numbers. And these things all kind of work together, and it's very intuitive. So, you go into ranges, you can see we have 3 ranges here, a blue one, an orange one, and a red one, and there are 3 ranges here. You can expand that, and you can see that the properties are very self-explanatory. You have the start value, the end value, and you can just adjust these however you want. So, you can go 0 to 10, and then 10 to 15, and I know I'm moving quick, but 15 to 20. And you can see it adjusts the ranges. Now, it looks a little funny because I didn't adjust the scales or anything, but you would just go through and do the scales next, and then you would adjust the ticks, and before you know it, you have a fully set up linear gauge. It's very, very simple to do. But being simple isn't good enough. We want it to be trivial. So let me relaunch my project here.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to respond to something that the chat room brought in as a Q&A. Alex Kugerman, I think we saw you yesterday. Thank you for being here. I think what you're about to do here, that's the report. Are you about to go into the designer?
I'm going to drop into the web report designer, yes.
Yep, there we go. So Alex was asking about the web report designer. Does that require anything else, like a server-wise? And the answer is no. And this may have already been answered in the chat room, but it's good for everyone to know. This is all powered by just an in-house REST service. You don't need to do anything, and you just power up your ASP.NET app, and it's right there. And it's full-featured, gives you all of the pretty much the designing chops that you have from a built-in, full-on desktop app right there in your web app.
Absolutely. You need a different endpoint for it, so a single controller and a little bit of configuration in the builder, to inject that service. It's all dependency injection and the minimal API, but no extra packages or anything, or nothing to license, I should say. I mean, everything is included in the Telerik Reporting license, and using the Visual Studio templates, it's a handful of clicks to have this, to add one of these things automatically. I did not invest a lot of time in building this, so. Okay, so this is that same report, but I'm just going to, again, just create a new report real quick. And I want to add a linear gauge. So let me see if I can find that here. Somewhere in this list. Here it is. So I'm going to click linear gauge wizard. And you see,
oh, I thought we only had a radial gauge wizard. There's also a linear gauge wizard?
No, we wizard all the things.
Oh, nice.
So we have our linear gauge wizard here, and similar to before, you can see it has all the properties, but there's a little bit more, visualness to this. We have these ranged sliders, so we can just go ahead and what I do before, like 1 to 10, and you can see it updates the lower bound of that one, so it's already saving me 2 properties I don't have to set. And then we'll do 10 to 30 and 30 to 40. I have no idea what I set before. So you can just click create now, and we get a nice little gauge. We can move around, do what we want with. Again, we have to adjust the scales and the ticks and everything, but this probably saved me, what, 50% of that time, just on clicking, and letting my eyes find the, the property in the list. So nice way to rapidly iterate, and we'll delete that and go back.
Absolutely. I'm going to take one more question here from the chat room because I think it's relevant here. Brian Lafleur, if I'm saying it right, is asking about, what about Mac? So when we talk about platforms that are supported, we are really talking about deployment, right? The server. In terms of developing your reports and your reporting solutions, that can be done anywhere. Like I'm on a Mac and I do this all the time. So we really don't care. Windows, Mac, it's all the same. So choose Visual Studio if that's what you want. The report designer, I mean, the standalone one, I think that's Windows only, right? If I'm not mistaken.
The standalone designer is, it's a Windows utility. I think most production Macs have a Windows sandbox now. So if you really wanted to use the standalone designer, you could always spin up a little Windows sandbox and run it there.
I run a VM all the time, but I mean, I honestly don't even need that anymore because the web report designer is plenty good enough for technical users as well as definitely your non-technical people. So when you're actually building up your reporting solution, you can do that on Windows versus Mac. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is very full. If you go back to my dashboard here, I mean, this is everything I need really. Go to preview, and it should render. Yeah, okay. Sometimes I forget to spin up the service for the data. This is all being generated via a math.random function, so it's not the most performant data set in the world, but I wanted to have a little bit of a different visual appeal every time I run it. Yeah, so this is everything you need, and if you learn reporting using this, you'll have no trouble because everything is going to be, where you expect it to be for the first time. If you're converting over from using the Simona Report Designer to using the Web Report Designer for the first time, there may be a minor, learning curve, but it's very minor. So instead of something being in the top, it's on the left.
Yeah, well said. All right, what else?
I want to dig into the permissions real quick. So this is why I have this designer open. So let's look at what we have in the components on the top left in the report items. We have a text box, HTML text box, and a picture box. So these are very common items. If I click in the report, I can add them anywhere I want. Okay, stop. Yeah, we can move. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are two ways to configure permissions globally. You would do that using the builder service here. You can see that there is a new object in the service, the R Report Designer service configuration, and it's denied permissions. These are all very intuitively named. And here you can just set a list of permissions that you want to deny sort of globally. And this is just a comma separated list. And as you type, you can use IntelliSense to find the permissions for you, and you'll see a list of everything that can be effectively turned off, as permissions. Now, it's likely that you're not going to want to set global denied permissions. So in the report designer controller, this is what we talked about a minute ago, Sam. There's a separate controller endpoint for the designer, and that is to enable things like this. So there is a override of the iActionResults method called getDeniedPermission. And in here, you can return a set of permissions to be denied. Now, the way I'm doing it isn't really not any different than doing it globally, but you can use any kind of conditional logic you want in here. If I were building this, it would be something in the identity framework, to tell me whether or not permissions are denied based on a user or a group or a role or really anything you want. Time of day, you can you can do a date time now, so you can only edit on Wednesdays. And there might be an actual production reason for that. Maybe you only do your editing on Wednesdays and you do your validation on Thursdays. So let's see, the text box, and what was the other one that was in the top? The HTML text box, I believe. Where are we going?
Kudos to you, by the way, for writing actual code on a webinar.
Does this count as writing code anymore? I'm just clicking. I mean, I feel like I'm letting down, my college self. Okay, text box, HTML text box, picture box. Let's rebuild and launch.
And when we are waiting on the build, I mean, that's pretty quick actually. So I won't have the time to ask you the question. It's quick.
I'll type slowly when I navigate, Sam. So go ahead and ask your question.
So Tegan Strauss in the chat room was asking, when designing a report in Visual Studio, is it the same WYSIWYG experience like you showed off in the Web Report Designer?
It's very similar. The caveat is that Visual Studio Report Designer is built on the old WinForms root drawing structure. So that is supported for the .NET framework solutions. There's going to be, because of it's an older legacy designer surface, it's going to be a slightly different feel. But the important thing to remember is that any of the designers can build any of the features in any of the reports, and they're completely cross-compatible. The major difference is that in Visual Studio, you're getting an object, a plain old class object or a POCO. It's a C# or VB class with a designer, and that gets run and compiled sort of at runtime. So there's a disadvantage there, Sam. If you have a class library of reports and you make a change, you have to rebuild that class library and redeploy that assembly. The standalone and the web report designers use a more modern technology. We have a TRDP file extension, which is effectively just a compressed XML file. But we re-engineered the report resolver, which is part of the rendering engine, to take that TRDP file, decompress it, serialize it, instantiate it, and then do the rendering sort of all in real time. The advantage is that you can change that file and don't have to rebuild your solution. You don't have to deploy anything. It's just a file swap. So the life cycle might be a little nicer. But if you're not changing or iterating on your reports very often and you don't want to deploy files and you want everything compiled into the solution, you're welcome to use the Visual Studio Report Designer, but that is for .NET Framework solutions only. There's that same drawing library is not available yet for .NET Core. And we're working with Microsoft to, make that happen at some point.
Well said.
Okay, so back to the designer here, and we'll go to our components section, and we can see that those 3 items that I disabled are no longer here. So I don't have any ability to add a text box or an HTML text box or a picture box now. And that's a very trivial example, but you can imagine where you might want to turn off certain data sources, certain levels of data source editing. You can really do so many intelligent things with this API. That sort of
it's very granular. With great power comes responsibility, and sometimes your users are not responsible. So it might make sense to lock down some things that you don't want to be messed with.
Well said, well said. And this should still preview out. Rendering. Okay. Again, random data. Math.random is not the most performant function, but it's fun. If I hit refresh, all my gauges are going to change.
This is very cool. I love the fact that you come up with new things to showcase every release. I mean, that's a very pixel perfect report, between GDI and SkiaSharp.
And I designed this to be boardroom ready, to display sort of as is. This chart here for ratings, it looks a little funny, but that's because these are robotically calculated. Based on the time, the rating is deterministic. But as you know, a user might do everything possible, to provide a good response to a user and still get a rating of 1. So in a real world scenario, this would be a much more interesting chart. But you can do lots of fun things here. And I did keep this confined to the 8.5 by 11 page size, so that if you wanted to, you can print this, come out on a piece of paper looking, exactly like it looks here. In fact, you can go to the print preview and see what it looks like. So if you wanted to, print out this minus the, the table, you can do that and get this top portion here. Really is quite a lot of power built into the library.
Indeed. All right, that's a lot, Rick. Anything else you got to mention?
Let me see. I think I hit all of my high marks. Yeah.
So complete flexibility, folks, when it comes to your reporting solution. Run it on whichever runtime .NET you can think of, .NET Framework, all the way up until .NET 8 RC2. So .NET 8 will be official soon in November of this year. And then you have full flexibility as to how you design your reports, and then more flexibility as to where you deliver them, platform-wise, report viewers for just about everything you can think of. And then once you're ready, where do you actually deploy your reporting solution? You got Windows servers and Linux servers, both on-prem and in the cloud. So have at it, do what makes sense for your business. All right, that was very, very good, Rick. Thank you for actually showing off the things that we talked about. If nothing else, Rick, I'm going to switch back to my screen, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go back here and let's switch gears. So thank you so much here, Rick. That was amazing stuff with the reporting solution, and kudos to the entire reporting team. I know some of them are in the back rooms here. That was a lot of work, and you're empowering developers and people who are consuming your reports or even building your reports to do so much more with so much more flexibility. So thank you. Now it's Fiddler time, right? We all wait for this because it's just such an integral part of our development experience. At least for me, that's how I have grown up as a developer with Fiddler. And it's just such a brave new world. It's just doing so many amazing things. So Simona, thanks for coming back. Let's talk about Fiddler, because everyone waits for Fiddler and what's new. And the team has been super busy doing so many amazing things. And then Fiddler has a lot more frequent releases. We just try to batch up everything that's been happening in the last 2 or 3 months. So Simona, if somebody just does not know anything about Fiddler, could you give us a rundown, high level? What exactly is Fiddler?
Sure. So Fiddler Everywhere is a cross-platform network proxy, which is useful for troubleshooting web, mobile, and desktop applications. This is the high level. Underneath, it has a lot of features, different options where you can capture the traffic itself, inspectors to analyze it. You have filtering capabilities, creating rules. You have the option to create APIs as well. So it's really a Swiss knife, and you can do a lot based on whatever your use case requires.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I have always used Fiddler by myself, but it's good to know that the team is thinking about, collaboration and amplifying how we work together with other developers, with our QA people, with our support engineers, and with your end users. So all of it together. Now, Fiddler, when it first started out, it was just one thing, but now it's just a big, family. It's a portfolio of products. Simona jumped directly into Fiddler Everywhere because that's where our, heart and soul are nowadays. But the other stuff is also there. Fiddler Classic, that's what we have, you have always used on Windows. If you're using that, keep using it. But Fiddler Everywhere is really our cross-platform solution. I remember, Simona, like the early days, like for about, 10 years, I was a Windows developer, and then I switched over to being a Mac developer as my primary thing. I still use Windows a lot, but I missed Fiddler on a Mac when I first switched over, and here we are with Fiddler Everywhere that just runs everywhere, as it sounds like. It's Linux and Mac and Windows, runs everywhere. It's a true network proxy, lets you see everything that's going in and out of your machine. So that means I can not just debug my web apps, I can also do desktop apps, I can do mobile apps, I can do microservices, I can do IoT, I can do all the things. And we are also, conscious of how your end users use it. So it's one thing to say that it works on my machine, so let's ship it, but it doesn't work on your end user's machine. You want to be able to know why. So we have Fiddler Cap, Fiddler Jam that lets you see what the user is experiencing, and all of the power of Fiddler is also extracted out into an embeddable .NET library. So if you want to build a dashboard where you want to have network visibility, go at it. So it's just a .NET library. So Fiddler is a big family of products now, and the team is super busy, churning out goodness every release.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's a good thing to mention here that the Fiddler brand has it has an anniversary this month, so 20 years.
Yes,
so
yes. How can I forget?
You can see from the previous slide how it all started with one product and how
it developed.
So
Fiddler officially started in October of 2003. So in tech world, like 20 years is an eternity for a product to be out and being used and so popular. So all of this month we are celebrating Fiddler's 20-year anniversary. We had a live stream. We had lots of videos, testimonials from people who have used Fiddler over years and years. We had a live stream, and we'll keep on sharing the love and the fun for this 20-year. Fiddler isn't just for me, right, Simona? It's not just for developers. And in fact, why don't we ask the chat room here just to see how you folks are using Fiddler, or if you have, friends or coworkers who are using Fiddler. So let's see. Can someone put it in the chat to see how Fiddler has been used, or whoever is using it, or can envision using it? So it is for your QA people as well. It is for your support engineers. It is for your end users as well. So we like seeing, all the different options of how people are using Fiddler. But I think the bottom line is nobody should be in the dark as to what's going on in your network. Modern applications are very interconnected. Maybe you have APIs that you're calling into. Maybe you have a native iOS app or a native Android app. Maybe you have some web services. So you have a lot of different use cases and different types of users who are, going to benefit from using Fiddler.
Yep, right. Everyone who's part of the software engineering team can benefit from Fiddler. So it would be curious to see about the people who joined us today, more about your background, your role. Yeah. That would be curious to learn.
Yeah, and while we're talking in the chat, this is not a question or a poll, but just in the regular chat for everyone. Feel free to chime in how you are using Fiddler, who are you, and what's your role. So again, Fiddler is meant for everyone. So on that note, let's dive a little bit more into Fiddler Everywhere, because I know this is the one that Simona loves to talk about, and it really is awesome. It's been just such an amazing journey to see it grow up so quickly compared to like Fiddler Classic. It is everything that we envision Fiddler to be: fresh, modern, and just works everywhere, right, Simona?
Yeah, as the slide says it's a cross-platform tool. You can capture traffic with it. You can inspect and analyze it. You can compare sessions. You can filter and narrow down to the request that you really want to work with. You can create rules to modify the traffic. There's a lot you can do with Fiddler Everywhere.
Yeah, and just the way Rick was talking about, we love dogfooding, and we're not going to go into the technical details, but a lot of the UI that you see within Fiddler is actually UI that is from us. So when you use our grids and charts, be at peace. Like if it can handle the kind of traffic and the volume of data that Fiddler can handle, it can likely do what you are trying to do as well. So on the Fiddler Everywhere front, I know the team has been super busy, and when we talk about Fiddler releases, each release we are essentially talking about what's happened in the next, or the last 3 or 4 little iterations that we have had. So we are up to 4.8.0, is that right? That's the latest one.
Previous months, the team really spent some time when we really focused on providing a good onboarding and just a good overall experience with the product. You'll see later as well, but we have separated the traffic pane and the composer pane on the left. We have added a completely new section called Home, where you can see very useful information about our features in general. And we believe because everything used to be in one view previously, it was a bit overwhelming. The composer was a little bit hidden, and now we decided to put focus on a separate focus on our 2 core functionalities, let's say. And we have, so if you need a use case to capture traffic, analyze it, play with it, you can focus on the traffic pane completely. If you need to create requests, edit them, you can use the composer pane. And if you do need to switch between those, so if you want to execute a request, you want to analyze it in the inspectors, you can quickly switch it from the tabs on the left. So that's also possible, and we believe we've covered a lot of the use cases with this new UI.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's essentially a brand new layout, and maybe we don't think about this a whole lot, but if it's a college kid just coming out fresh, or somebody who's had a career change, coming in fresh in the industry, and you give them Fiddler, it can be a little overwhelming, just like how much it is and how much it captures. So this is a nice way to segregate things out, and it's a nice onboarding experience. The home is clean. It just tells you all the different ways of, here's your proxy, here are your terminals, here's what rules are, here's what the composer is. So it's just a nice way of separating things out.
Yeah.
All right, so that's again, no small feat, trying to declutter a little bit and just present everything that Fiddler does a little bit more elegantly. So that's awesome. So new layout, new onboarding experience for anybody who's new to Fiddler. But even for seasoned users, you are always doing things that make me more productive. I see the composer now has a few new improvements.
Yeah, we actually mentioned this on our anniversary webinar as well, but we do want to put focus on our composing functionality in general. And a few improvements that we started off with are these. So the first one is to separate the cookies tab. You can see it from the picture, you'll see it later as well, but there are use cases where you need to work with a lot of cookies, and we believe this UI gives you the convenience to work better with them, to review them easily, and to edit them. So this is like a small thing. It might be a small thing, but we believe it brings a lot of convenience. The other thing related to the composer is the option to edit data in the raw tab, or should I say the raw mode, because if you need to quickly build a request, or you just prefer to work in the not a structured grid UI way, you can directly switch to the raw mode and directly edit your request there.
Yeah, can I request a milk tab next to the cookies tab? No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, you look at modern. Yeah, it's almost Christmas time in a couple of months. But you look at modern websites, like it's just a lot of cookies that everybody has to write for the optimal user experience. And maybe if your web app is trying to write cookies, this is a nice way to see what's going across the wire. And the status bar, I see a zoom level here. What does that exactly do?
So it gives you a quicker way to control the zoom level. You can do it from the buttons, plus, minus. You also have the full list with percentages that you can choose in whatever screen you work with, based on whatever screen you work with. So yeah, we do want to improve our application status bar, and we'll be adding some more stuff there as well that give you information about your current setup. But this is one thing that we started off with. And of course, you can do keyboard navigation as well, but this right there reminds you that you can actually control this easily and
now,
do it.
Does it do it on the entire Fiddler window, or is it on a per section basis?
It's the entire app.
Okay.
So
all right. Yeah. And I mean, I'm getting old. I like my text to be very small, but now I'm, squinting sometimes, trying to read all the text, especially if it's in that volume of data. All right. Now, I know we have talked about this in the last couple of releases. I'm just aggregating things up, but these are such valuable things that the Fiddler team has done. Rules is a huge part of, how I use Fiddler. It's just a great way of turning things on and off. And we have had the rules grouping feature now, which is so good to be able to organize my rules and be able to apply things in bulk. So like when I am going into a web application that I'm trying to build, I'm doing performance testing, I want to turn off my JavaScript. I want to see what happens when CSS is turned off, what happens if my image is not delivered. All of those can be rules that I, apply in bulk, and I can drag and drop, I can arrange. And Simona, I can also share the rules, right, between you and me.
Yes, you can definitely share it. Yeah, this was a very requested feature, and for a reason. We introduced this a few months ago, but it provides you better organization. You can separate your rules per use case, or just the type of action that you want to execute. So yeah, definitely very useful organizational feature.
Yeah, and I mean, think about like a team lead who has tons of experience in optimizing web performance of an app, and he or she comes in and sets up all of this, and now everybody has all of those rules that are grouped together and that can be shared. So that's pretty awesome. Now, terminals, for the hardcore people amongst us, we love our terminals, and Fiddler is great when it's all GUI, but I can do things with terminal as well, right?
Yeah, as mentioned, there are a lot of different approaches through which you can capture traffic, and the terminal approach is one of them. It's an alternative method to capturing traffic, which does not require setting the system proxy or trusting the Fiddler certificate authority. And you can start the terminal process from this button in the UI, and it will proxy all your requests to Fiddler Everywhere.
Yeah, and I saw wide support for a variety of terminals like Windows. I think I can do DOS, I can do PowerShell, command prompts, and same with Mac and Linux. So whatever be our terminal of choice, you can bring it and make it work with Fiddler. All right. Now, you kind of hinted at this in a couple of screenshots before this that I could see with the composer, but this thing is big. HTTP2, we have had this in like beta, I think, in the last release or so. Now it's all official, right? And maybe it's bleeding edge, maybe it's ahead of its time, but it's here. I mean, you and your web apps should start considering utilizing HTTP2. The benefits are, obvious, the multi-threading and all the compression. And Fiddler will handle all of that with ease. So that's HTTP, and then gRPC, that's also something we are very excited about that we have been building up over the last year or so. Again, catering to modern applications and how things are built. It's not all .NET, it's not all JavaScript. Things need to talk and be interconnected between each other services. So remote procedure calls are very, very popular, and gRPC continues to be very popular. So think about WebSockets, think about gRPC. We are trying to enable all types of traffic that you might want to, be able to see right here inside of Fiddler. So Simona, what am I missing out saying?
You mentioned a lot of things. Yeah, first of all, HTTP2 is now official. We introduced it as a beta feature so that we have some time to gather feedback, make sure we handle most of the use cases, and we're ready to claim official support. And actually, very soon this will be enabled by default for everyone, because currently you still have to go to the settings and enable this option manually. gRPC, yes, this is a modern, efficient protocol known for high performance and very useful for like microservices, data streaming. So if you have applications that you need to troubleshoot which use the gRPC framework, you can now capture that as well with Fiddler Everywhere.
Yeah, I love the fact that it's really any type of traffic, real-time, WebSockets, SignalR, gRPC, bring it all. Fiddler is going to do it all for you. Now, off late, we have also had a switch over to more secure connections and more, types of connections as the internet and our networking stack evolves. So now we have support for TLS 1.3, which again may be very new, but again, it's coming and it's everywhere. So both client and server connections can now be over TLS, and Fiddler is going to tell you that, hey, there is a switch off transport and show you exactly how the connection is being made. And we have also, started up an effort to enable offline mode. So if you are in a disconnected environment, you should still be able to sign in and use Fiddler for your local APIs or anything else that you might have going on. So that's still in beta, correct, Simona?
Yes, it still is. Again, we like to take our time and polish things before we claim them official. But if your use case requires this, if you need to work somewhere offline, if you're in a company where there's a stricter policies and limited or no internet access, you can take advantage of this feature. You can reach out to us and we'll make sure you're set up successfully.
Nice, very nice. All right, so let's make sure none of you are sleeping, right? This is a quick one last poll here, we promise, to understand how all of this impacts you. So let's do a quick interactive thing here. What type of traffic do you envision capturing with Fiddler Everywhere? And again, we are trying to understand, we have support for all of this, right? So HTTP 1.1 is kind of how the web works today. HTTP 2 is how we envision the web to be working today onwards, maybe tomorrow, and then WebSockets and gRPC, which is very popular for lower level things. So it's not HTTP, it's not just an immediate API service call. It's much more of a handshake, much more lower level. So if we were to ask you which one of these are the ones that you are using most to capture what type of traffic, what would be your answer? Okay, all right. So the majority, I don't think I'm surprised by this, Simona. The majority of the web is HTTP 1, that's fair. But I'm actually interested in 23% of people who are looking into HTTP 2. That's exciting. WebSockets, this is kind of my jam with some real-time apps, or especially with like chat applications nowadays. Everything is WebSockets. That's nice to see. And gRPC, I mean, it's new. And then maybe with .NET audiences that are slowly catching up a little bit more, other types of stacks maybe a little bit more open to gRPC. But again, it's real. We have heard the need from our customers, so we are going to keep churning, keep building on a variety of types of traffic. So we can enable you to use Fiddler however or whatever it is that you're dealing with. So with that, I'm sure you're done with me just talking through things here. Simona, why don't I give you the screen here to maybe show us a little bit of what we just talked about. So let's find you here. All right. Oh, we see the Fiddler and the new home screen right away.
Yep. It's visible, right? Okay.
Yes.
I got it correctly. Yeah, okay. So we can start with the first thing you're probably seeing, of course, is the new layout. Here are the panes that I talked about. We have one for the traffic, one for composer, and the newly introduced home pane. We have a few sections here, ways to capture and inspect traffic. We have 2 features that help you modify and filter traffic, and of course, information about composing API requests. And all of these, the purpose of these is because a lot of people use Fiddler Everywhere to debug traffic, but there's really a lot of features which can help you with that. A lot of functionalities that can speed up the process, like rules and filters. And this UI now gives a better visibility of the main functionalities that are available in Fiddler Everywhere. And all of those are in the form of wizards. So for example, if I click here, there's like a brief introduction about each one in the box. There's also the steps that you can go through to learn more about the feature. There's information about the feature itself and how you can benefit from it, how you can use it, for example, how to add a new rule or organize rules with the grouping functionality. And then the last step will directly take you to the feature so you can get going. Basically,
I love this, by the way, Simona. I mean, we just get into a mode where we are just like so tunnel visioned that we are just keeping on building more and more complexity. We forget, like, there are new people coming in. Somebody may not have used all of this before. So what exactly is a rule? How do I use a composer? I love the fact that the team took the time to clean up and explain it to everyone. This is how you get started.
Yeah, and some of the wizards are mostly informative as this one, but there are other wizards as well which actually help you with the configuration of the feature and do most of the steps automatically for you, so that you don't spend time in setting up something, but you can like go directly to what you need to do, like in a quicker way.
Can I ask, I see something new in there about remote devices, because that's the one thing I always do. Okay, all right. I don't want to steal your thunder. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, just wanted to mention that, for example, if I want to capture traffic through the system proxy, I can click on this box. I can follow the steps. Of course, I have useful information about what each step will do once I click it. But first one is to set the system proxy. We wait for Fiddler Everywhere to do its magic, and then we are on to the second step, which is trusting Fiddler certificate and enabling HTTPS. Again, I'll need to provide authentication, but here the second step is also completed, and then I am good to go with the capturing. I can open live traffic, and traffic will start generating here. So basically, this is what I meant by doing the steps for you, because you go through a few steps and you're all set up with the configuration, which is really nice. And we noticed the usability of the wizards, and that's why we added one more or a few more, which are the remote devices.
I love this.
Yeah, and I can, once you click here, you can select the device that you want to connect to Fiddler Everywhere. For example, I'll just click on iOS. Again, I have all the steps here, information about what will happen on each step. We have QR codes for convenience, which you can scan and download the certificate. I also have information about what I need to do on the device itself that I want to connect. And as a last step, I also have a test connectivity step, which in this case, it will show me that it was not successful because I did not actually go through all the steps on my device and everything. But if you get lost at some point, this page will let you know if you need to go back or you need to access our troubleshooting page. But at the end of the day, you'll be good to go with the configuration.
Yeah. And I love the QR code here. I love the additional help, because like none of this is new. Like it was just all a part of docs and you'd have to look this up, and now it's just front and center.
Yeah, previously these steps were not available in the application at all. You had to go through, as you mentioned, you get to go through the documentation, look for this information and go through each steps unless you knew them by heart. but this is now available out of the box, and there's no need for you to leave the application. You can directly choose the device you want to connect, and it will show you the wizard for it.
Very cool.
So yeah, a lot of effort went into building this and making it more convenient for users. I mentioned about the HTTP2 support. This is still available here as a checkbox, and with the next release, this will be enabled by default. So you will no longer have to go here and do it manually. Moving on to the composer, I'll just choose.
Now, while she's doing that, did you folks catch what Simona did? Like, she chose her traffic that was logged. It was a request and response, and you could just right-click and open it up in the composer, so you can, you can muck with it. That's one of the inbuilt powers of Fiddlers. You can inspect and, modify traffic that's already been captured.
Yeah, and I wanted to show you here the cookies tab, as mentioned. See, we have 12, and it's much more easier now that this tab is a separate one, because previously everything used to be in the headers as information. So now there's a dedicated one, and you can easily review and edit whatever you need.
Oh, you can also delete the cookies.
Yep.
Oh, that's nice. So, I mean, if I am writing an app where I'm depending on a cookie for a certain user experience, I can just drop the cookie and see what it is like without it.
Yeah, another thing which I mentioned before is the raw tab, which was previously a tab here, but now it's more of a mode. So if you need to quickly build a request, or you just prefer this type of format to work with, you can switch to the raw from this UI. It is now editable, and you can directly edit here. There's also validation for included here. So for example, if I make a mistake here, it will underline it, but if I execute it, we can see that the HTTP2 was sent correctly with the request.
Interesting. So, like you kind of like scared us for a second, because like this is hardcore. You're modifying the whole the header and everything by hand, but I mean, if you want to, you have it.
Yep. Yeah, that's about it. I have one more thing about the composer. We introduced a new layout for this as well. There's vertical and horizontal. This was previously available only for the traffic pane, but now it's you can use it for the composer as well, and just choose the preferred way of looking at data and working with the composer. Very cool. Last but not least is status bar improvement, which has the option to control the zoom level. As mentioned, you can do it from the buttons here. It reflects on the whole app. You can also choose from the list here, or of course play with the keyboard.
Nice. I'm going to deny my age and continue going like full 5K until I can see the text no more. But
it depends on the screen, that you're working probably.
Yeah, so we love to see the real estate. It's good to see the bigger picture with all things captured. But then maybe if you want to zoom in, you can just zoom in with a certain status bar right there, and then just keyboard shortcuts really come back out to a full mode. Yeah, and then the cookies and everything, that's just very nice to see. It's like I always say, it's a little embarrassing sometimes when you go to popular sites and you just see how much traffic back and forth there is, and Fiddler captures it all. Like every time Microsoft and Apple and Google will call home, Fiddler captures it all because it's a network proxy. All right, I am very excited with this new layout. Much more cleaner, much more easier for me to get started if I'm new and I understand and I have different tabs to go into. I love the enhancements to the composer and continued efforts to be better and better with traffic and capture all types of traffic. So kudos and good work to you and the whole team.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, anything else, Simona, that you want to show off before I steal the screen back?
That was all. If there are any questions.
Yes, there are. So we are going to go into a quick Q&A mode here. So folks, again, we appreciate your time. We said an hour and a half, so we are almost up to that time, but let's do a little bit of Q&A. I know folks have been trying to answer as many things as we could in the background, but let's answer a few things that might benefit all of us. And I'm going to switch between Rick and Simona here. Rick, Bernadette is asking, can I not print directly to a printer from my reporting solution?
Yes, of course you can. So directly in the toolbar of all the report viewers, there's a print icon, which will spin up the system print dialog. What it does behind the scenes is it exports it to PDF, which is, that format was designed explicitly for printing. And then it'll send it to the printer via the print dialog. You can also bypass the entire visualization if you want to send it directly to the printer. You can use a little bit of code available in our documentation to send it directly to the printer, which does the same process, but without the dialogues.
Yeah, interesting. Different types of workflows, you use reporting however you want. Folks are on Apple Silicon, so am I, and it should be usable because the report designer, especially the web-based one, it doesn't care. It's just a modern web app. Any browser will do. Okay, so the age-old question, Simona, that we always have to answer, Fiddler versus DevCraft. What is the Fiddler subscription like?
It is not included in the DevCraft. It's a separate product. It's a subscription-based. So we have flexible plans. We have Pro and Enterprise in terms of types of plans. And the Fiddler Everywhere Pro plan is available to subscribe for on a monthly basis or on an annual basis, which tends to be more like convenient from money-wise. But yeah, whatever you need, and if whatever flexibility you need, you can go to our pricing page and choose the best plan for you. We also have the enterprise plan, which comes with a few additional features, single sign-on, the offline support is there as well, and a few more things which you can take a look at from our website.
Yep. All right, so Andre in the chat room is asking, just to confirm that the terminal support with Fiddler, it does HTTPS intercepts without the root certificate, or is it just HTTP?
It does HTTPS, and that's why I mentioned before that it does not require trusting the certificate or setting the system proxy, so you can go ahead and use it.
Yeah, and again, I mean, think it through, folks, as you are, using Fiddler, because this does open up a lot more avenues for you to use Fiddler. So maybe it's a script, maybe it's, you start thinking about your CI/CD pipelines and how you do builds and how you, deploy things, how your APIs are. So it's just a way of giving you more flexibility as you go along. I'm trying to go through all of the questions. Andrew was also asking the support for remote devices. Does this require additional apps installed on iOS or Android? No. It's just as it is. So all you have to do fundamentally is you let your iOS or your Android or any other tablet, set up a network thing so it goes through Fiddler. That's about it. So am I right, Simona? It's just a one port essentially.
Yep. Yes, they have to be on the same network as well. So yeah, everything is in the steps in the wizard, but nothing additional is needed to install.
Absolutely, nothing additional needed. Let's see. I'm going to put you in a spot here, Rick. Is there support for React Native? And I'm guessing it's a question about being able to render your reports and a report viewer. So, I mean, my answer is like, you can do the HTML web viewer anywhere. It doesn't really matter. But what are your thoughts, Rick?
React Native.
Because React and React Native are a little bit of a different animal. Like let's just talk about like React on the web. So we don't have a native report viewer per se. Maybe if that's something people need, but you can always run with HTML viewer. React Native is a very different ballgame because now you're talking about native apps with iOS or Android, different UI component model, different ways of different widgets that we do. So that's a broader question. And again, I want to be able to say I can take the report viewer or even the Blazor report viewer and put it on a mobile app. That's not stopping me from doing so. But let's have a broader conversation. Telerik, if React Native is how you're building your apps and you want your apps to be rendering reports within your native apps, let's talk about some options here.
Well, let's see. So does React Native use, is it Electron or is it UWP?
No, it's its own thing. So it's its own native cross-platform app dev stack. Familiar to React developers, but it's not the same as React as it is on the web. So again, the report viewer, the web report viewer is going to work no matter what type of app it is, because it's just web. But it's not going to be as native as you want, like we showed off with Angular. So I think we're open to feedback.telerik.com. Tell us what you're trying to do, and we'll talk it through and see what we can enable.
Yeah, it'd be a fun project. Also, I'm thinking also offline or online, because if you're using it offline, you have to be able to embed the rendering engine as well.
Right. Yeah. So a few things to consider.
Yeah. More research needed. Whoever asked that question, contact me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week.
Yeah, that's funny. I do have our contacts coming up, but I mean those are mostly the broad questions I could see that benefit everyone. I'm also trying to be conscious of time here. So let's pull up our contact info one more time. So that's Rick, that's Simona, that's me. We would love to chat, X or anywhere else that you are. Hit us up or GitHub or any of the socials. We are here. We are here to be your first, responders to answer your questions. But you should know how to get hold of us through our support channels. Feedback.telerik.com. That's how you can have a breadcrumb trail so that the PMs responsible for the products actually get back to you and we can have more of a conversation. But we cannot thank you enough for spending an hour and a half with us. I know we have had a set of folks who are, fervently answering questions in the back. So thank you for supporting us while we talk through most of the release, updates. But Rick and Simona, great job with some real world demos and showing off things live. That's always scary, but it's fun to do. And thank you everyone for your time. Hopefully you see that when it comes to productivity, we want to be right there with you with reporting solutions, with network debugging solutions, with testing solutions, anything else that you need other than just the UI part of your app, which is kind of our bread and butter with Telerik and Kenda UI. We are your partners in success. So hope all of this tooling in this release, all combined, Telerik, Kenda UI, Fiddler, reporting, testing, is enabling you to be more productive and more successful. So cheers to that, and be well, be productive, and we'll see you on the next webinar. So that's it from us, and take care. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.